Hey guys, this is Bruce with Cross Country 3, and this is the Sentinel Podcast. We want to help you to be the kind of warrior and watchman that you can be. And of course, we highlight those values that are important to us. And well, those values are faith, family, and freedom. And we want to highlight men and women who help us in those areas of life. And I have with me today Mr. Chuck Looney, and we're going to talk a little bit about his life in the military and perhaps his life of faith that is very dear to him. And we're just going to have a good time. I'm going to ask Chuck some questions and just learn a little bit about his life, and we also have in the room with us Chuck's daughter, Shirley, and Shirley might be able to help us out here or there with some questions or answers. So, Chuck, first of all, let me just say thank you for being here with me today.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Well, Chuck, can you tell us how old you are?
I'm 91 years old as of January the 23rd.
All right, as of January 23rd. Right now, we're in Niceville, Florida. And Chuck and I know each other through Rosemont Baptist Church. We're both part of the ministry here, and we're actually in the pastor's office at Rosemont Baptist Church. And so, Chuck, you live here in Niceville. Shirley lives in Crestview, I think. But you've got family in the area. But were you born in Niceville?
No, I was born in Virginia.
In Virginia, okay.
Yes.
Small town or big town?
Actually, out in the country. The closest town was like 7 miles away.
Okay.
And it was in Kentucky, which was just a little ways across the state line from where I live.
Okay.
We lived on my grandparents' farm.
What kind of farm was that?
It was just a regular farm. They raised corn and soybeans and stuff like that to feed the cattle. And we had cattle and horses and mules that did the plowing and all that stuff. And also corn for eating to make cornmeal and stuff like that out of, and canned corn. So we raised all kinds of vegetables and like cabbage and lettuce and green beans and potatoes, which was our main food life.
Yeah.
During that time in our country, because when I was born, we were just getting over the big depression of the 1930s. So things weren't too great in my first early years.
Yes. Difficult times. I know that across America, people were going through some dark days.
Yes.
So what year were you born then?
I was born in January 23rd, 1934.
Okay. You have one of my favorite hats on your head, and it says that you are a Korea and Vietnam veteran. So you obviously were in the United States military. Did you join or enlist in the military after high school?
No, I went to work at Chrysler's at the defense plant in Detroit, and I had a 1 year deferment. And Chrysler's tried to get another year, but the Korean War was getting so revved up, they wouldn't give me another year, so I had to go into the military at that time. So I spent 4 years in the Marine Corps, then I got out and I was in the reserves.
So you were in the Marine Corps for 4 years.
Yes.
And does that mean that the Marines sent you to Korea?
Yes, my first assignment right out of basic training.
So that was in the 50s?
1954, 6 months before they signed the peace treaty.
Okay. Do you have any recollection of something that stood out to you about that time before the peace treaty while you were serving in Korea?
Yes, I was a forward observer, and I was up on the DMZ, and I could see all the enemy on the other side of the DMZ. My job was to call in targets to the fire center, where they would either use aircraft or artillery or mortars one to take out the situation.
Yeah. Do you remember? I'm going to help you with the mic here. I'll go ahead and hold on to it.
Okay.
Oh, you got it?
Mhm.
Okay. Um, there, right there would be good. So along the DMZ there, and you were able to see the enemy.
Yes.
Do you remember any kind of emotion or feeling that was going through you during those times?
Well, I was a little nervous all that time. Never been in war before, being a young man, you know. I think most of us was probably nervous because we all got sent right out of basic training to war without serving any time anywhere else.
Where was your basic training?
Parris Island, South Carolina.
Oh, I've sure heard a lot about Parris Island, South Carolina. Good things and bad.
Yeah, there was some bad things. A lot of swamps we had to walk through
Yes.
during our training.
So when you came back from Korea, you did you say you went into the reserves?
When I came back from Korea, the whole 1st Marine Division moved back to Camp Pendleton, California, and I had a year left on my enlistment. And when my enlistment was up, I got out and I was in the reserves. I had the 8-year obligation back then during the draft years. And went back to my job, and I couldn't get my job back because they said they had closed the defense plant and they had 1,500 people laid off. So I went to work in the coal mines for a year. Then I got laid off there, and I couldn't find a job. And my family, I needed money for my family, so I joined the Air Force.
Now, you worked in the coal mines in Kentucky, or
yes, Virginia and Kentucky.
Wow. So I've heard horror stories about working in the coal mine.
It's not an easy job. It's a dirty job, I tell you that.
Yeah. So from the Marines to the dirty job of working in the coal mines.
Yeah.
One of my favorite movies is called October Sky.
Okay.
And October Sky is about Homer Hickam.
Oh yeah.
Who grew up in Coalwood, West Virginia,
Yes.
and his dad worked in the coal mines.
Yes.
And then Homer, of course, wanted to shoot rockets.
Yeah.
And he ended up, Homer did, at NASA.
Okay.
And anyway, great story. And the movie, of course, takes place there in and among the coal mines of West Virginia.
Yes.
Yeah. So you joined the Air Force, and when you did so, what job were you assigned to then?
I was assigned to be a jet engine mechanic, so they sent me to Wichita Falls, Texas, to jet engine school. And from there, I went to Johnson Air Base, Japan.
Now, if I remember right, Wichita Falls, Texas, that's Shepherd Air Force
Shepherd
Base?
Air Force Base.
Yeah. When I was at Tinker Air Force Base in Oklahoma, would drive down to visit my parents in Lubbock, Texas.
Okay.
And we could either go west across 40, I think, across Oklahoma, and then south through Amarillo, or south from Oklahoma City down through Wichita Falls.
Yeah.
And that's about all I know
about that. I was stationed at Altus Air Force Base for 3.5 years.
Oh, yes.
And they sent me to Dow Air Force Base, Washington, to help close the base. My commander thought I could do that. So I went there and helped close the base. And then I went to March Air Force Base when the last aircraft left.
Okay.
And from there, we started flying missions over Vietnam.
Oh.
During the Vietnam War.
Shirley?
We were at Larson Air Force Base in Washington.
Larson Air Force Base in Washington. And that's where your daughter Brenda was born.
Yeah.
And so where were you born, Shirley?
I was born in Ironton, Ohio. He was just out of the Marines and hadn't gotten into the Air Force.
Oh, okay.
My wife was pregnant, and the doctor told me to send her home early, so I sent her to her aunt's house in Ironton, Ohio.
Okay.
Because we didn't have a place to live yet. And I got out and went to Ironton and went up into Virginia and got me a job in the coal mines. And she was born while I was working there.
Boy, that is quite the journey.
Yeah.
Lots of memories there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you mentioned Altus and March Air Force Base,
Mm-hmm.
California,
Yes.
and then ultimately to Vietnam.
Yeah.
And what base were you at when you left for Vietnam?
March Air Force Base.
At March. Okay.
We went TDY for 193 days, flying missions out of Guam. And then they took the ship to Pueblo. So we were called upon to go again. We were there for 120 days, and I got an assignment to Thailand.
Okay.
So I went to Thailand, and we were flying missions out of there. It's just like we was out of Guam, except it was shorter and cheaper
Okay.
for the military, and fuel and stuff.
So flying missions out of Guam
Mm-hmm.
and the flying of missions out of Thailand, was that with a different unit then?
Same unit, B-52, March Air Force Base.
Okay.
I was on flying status, and the Air Force sent me to Combat Intelligence School, and I flew in the lead command aircraft. And if there was a special orders, I carried the special orders, which had to be opened after we got certain distance away from the base, and tell the lead captain what the mission was, and he would inform the other crew members.
How did you feel having that information?
Well, I thought it was an awful lot of responsibility for an enlisted guy, but I took it with a grain of salt. I did my job. My commander put the trust in me, so I had to do the best I could with it.
Well, the Lord sure has blessed you
Amen.
with the intelligence and the wherewithal to be
Mm-hmm.
alert
Yeah.
and resilient enough for officers and their crew to rely on
Mm-hmm.
you. So
Yeah.
you proved obviously to be trustworthy.
Yeah. Thank you.
Ultimately, out of Guam and then out of Thailand, how long? But with both of those places and flying those missions over Vietnam, how long were you there?
I have 4 years and 2 months combat time flying missions over Vietnam.
Okay. Yeah.
Uh,
And I remember you saying that the B-52 is your favorite aircraft.
my favorite aircraft.
Yeah. Kind of hard not to be.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I worked on them for 15 years, so.
That's outstanding. When you came back from Vietnam, where were you assigned?
We got stationed at Altus when first time I came back. Then we came back to Wright-Patterson, and then we went back to March Air Force Base. SAC kept moving me around because they didn't want me to get transferred out of SAC.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, because they had spent a lot of money training me for the different jobs that I had to do, and so they didn't want to lose me.
Yeah.
Now, he came back to Wright Pat. We stayed at March.
Okay.
We didn't leave March until he went to Vietnam, and then
Yeah.
we came and stayed with my mom's family.
Okay. So part of that time at March Air Force Base while he was in Vietnam.
We stayed in March the whole time, so he probably had TDY to Wright Pat, because I only lived at Wright Pat when I was in first and second grade.
Okay. Remind me where Wright Pat is. Is that Ohio?
It's in Dayton, Ohio.
Okay. Yeah. Did you know that Dayton University is called the Dayton Flyers?
I didn't know that.
Yeah. They have a history of good basketball.
Okay.
So I'm assuming that the Dayton Flyers get their name from Wright-Patterson being
Probably
right there.
Probably do.
Yeah.
Yeah, we owned a house right outside of Wright-Patterson in Fairborn. We lived in it until I left, and I found this disabled vet that needed a home, and we were getting transferred. So he paid the court $75 to transfer the loan over to him. So I just let him have it for that. because it was cheaper than rent.
Yes, yes. Well, how in the world do you go from all over the world and end up at Eglin Air Force Base or Niceville?
Well, at the time, I had a real serious illness. I had psoriasis, and my skin was breaking open, and I was bleeding. And the doctor recommended that I be stationed somewhere in the south close to the salt water, because he said salt water and sun was a good healing product for psoriasis. And so I put in for all the bases along the coast from Texas to South Carolina. But I put Eglin first because they had the most military people assigned, and I got Eglin.
Outstanding.
And I came to Eglin, and of course my commander, me and my commander was processing in at the same time, so we didn't know that we were going to be in the same squadron. And we talked a lot. He was coming from Germany, and I was coming from Guam. And we talked a lot about our military career. And then when I had to go in for my newcomers briefing, he said, "Oh, we've already had newcomers briefing." He says, "Well, they got you working." And I said, "Well, they got me working out at a test cell for this master sergeant's only got 3 years time and grade, and I got almost 10. He says, "No, we're not going to have that. You're going to come in and be my flight line supervisor."
Oh,
So
yes.
I come in and went to work for him.
Good.
I worked there till I retired. He tried to get me to re-enlist again, but I had a job promise at Pensacola, and they were holding it for me. And I didn't want to disappoint the lady that was holding that job, because she held it for 6 months for me.
Oh, yes.
So I took that job and worked there 14 years and 8 months till they closed the depot. Moved. I could have went to Jacksonville or Corpus Christi with them, but I didn't want to because I had my home here.
Yeah. How many years total of United States military service do you have?
Military and government, I got 40 years, 8 months, and 3 days.
40 years, 8 months,
3 days.
and 3 days. That's a lot of years. Thank you for your service.
Yeah.
And you've had a very productive time, obviously.
I have. You know, the Lord has really blessed me, and I count that because I was a Christian all that time. Although I failed many times, now I'm doing my best to live up to what I should have been living long in early years of my life.
So that begs the question, which I think you've basically answered. So you've been a believer, a Christian,
since I was 16.
Since you were 16.
Mhm.
Okay. So
Yeah.
all your time, all those 40 plus years of working for the United States government, being a part of the greatest armed forces in all the world, you were a Christian,
Mhm.
a believer in the Lord Jesus.
Yes.
And you've actually written a couple of small booklets or books.
I have wrote a couple of books, yes.
And I've got those in my house, and I've read those, and they are basically a description of your testimony.
Yes. Especially the one, My Christian Journey.
Yes.
Is my testimony.
Yeah. Well, I know that the people of Niceville are certainly thankful to have Chuck Looney living here, and certainly Rosemont Baptist Church
Amen.
is thankful to have you. I'm so grateful to call you my friend and my brother.
Amen.
And I appreciate that. Not too long ago, we went to the Eglin Armament Museum.
Yes.
Together.
Uh-huh.
That was kind of fun.
It was.
We toured around a little bit and got to see some of the airplanes and other equipment from those days.
Those days, and then the newer equipment for these days. Some of the newer equipment for these days.
Where are we housing our B-52s now? Are B-52s still flying?
Most of them are in the reserves, and the rest of them are in the desert out in Nevada.
Okay.
But the reserves still have some B-52s, but you know, the B-70 took its place.
Yeah.
So I got to work on that for a little while.
If you were to provide some guidance or advice to someone listening today about lessons that you've learned over your years of service and giving and growing, hard times and good times, if you were to give our listeners some guidance, what would you like to suggest?
I would say first, you should accept Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior. And then when you're given a job, you should always do your best and go the extra mile because your country deserves that from you. I retired. So I had a good time. I enjoyed my career, and I'm glad I got to serve my country.
So you didn't go past a 7th grade education.
I went one semester of the 8th grade. My dad had black lung, and he eventually died with a heart attack, and he had that black lung so bad at the age of 61. And I was the oldest in the family of 12 children.
You mentioned earlier one of the guys that you worked with, your favorite commander,
J.T. Cutler.
J.T. Cutler.
Jesse Cutler, yes. He was a Christian man, and he understood the needs of a Christian. He understood the needs of men, and he understood the needs of the military. And so he guided us with good advice and help if we needed
it. I bet you mentioned earlier that you worked some really long days on those flying missions.
I did, yes.
And
in Vietnam.
15-hour days.
15 hours, sometimes longer, depending on the workload. If the other crew coming on couldn't handle it, we had to stay till they could handle the job.
Probably sometimes sleeping in your uniform.
That's right.
Yeah. That's just kind of what you do during those times.
Usually we got breakfast and they brought us flight line lunches to the flight line. Breakfast about the only meal we got in the dining hall, which we had a tent.
Were you communicating with anybody back home during your time in combat?
I was writing my wife. We got married right after I came back from Korea. We got married in 56. I came back from Korea in 55. She had wrote me a letter while I was in Korea. I didn't know her. I knew her mother really well. Me and her went to the same church for a couple of years. But she was going to the Methodist church. And me and her brother Charles, same name as me, he's 11 days older than me. Me and him both went to school together. His name is Charles Alford, and mine's Charles Edmund. Teacher used to get us mixed up in class. So she had us sitting so many seats apart, and she'd say, person in seat so-and-so to Charles in seat so-and-so when she wanted to ask a question.
Right.
But we enjoyed each other, and we were really good friends until he passed away with a heart attack. He had retired from a paper company, and he had just drew his first retirement check, and he had a heart attack and never survived. Then I think his wife, she sort of pined herself to death. She died less than a year later. And she had already been through that when she was a young lady. She was married to a military guy in the World War II, and he got killed in combat. And then that was her second husband because she was a teenager when he got killed. And I think it took everything out of her, losing two husbands that way.
Yes, of course. Shirley, were you?
During the time of my family, he was referred to as brother, and he was referred to as Chuck.
Oh.
So I did not know that his name was not brother. I thought that was his name, brother. And so when we got old enough, they started teaching us to say aunt and uncle, because we always called everyone by their first name, because a lot of people lived with us at different times. And so I called him Uncle Brother, and everyone just laughed at me. And I couldn't understand why. I said, isn't that his name? And they said, no, his name is Charles. Like, why do we call him brother?
Brother.
It made no sense. I was like 7. It didn't make any
Sure.
Yes. And my Aunt Pearl died a long time after brother
Yeah.
died.
Well, we always called
Yeah.
him brother.
Yeah.
Uncle, brother, and Aunt Pearl.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Aunt Pearl died in 2012
Uh,
with breast cancer.
I
And
don't know how
my
he
mom
got that
started
name, but he had it when I first met him. Everybody was calling him brother, so
Brother.
I called him
Yeah.
brother.
Well, two Chucks.
Yeah, two Chucks.
One of you's got to be a brother.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right.
What you talked about your favorite commander, and if you were to, you already said a couple of good things,
Yeah,
but you obviously had something in common.
we did. First Christ we had in common.
Okay, you were both Christians.
We were both Christians, and he took me sort of under his wing uh, and gave me a job, and I only had to report to him.
Yeah,
And so that was a good thing for me in my career because it gave me some future stuff to help me out with promotions and stuff.
yeah. Well, anything else you'd like to add?
No, just that's all. Just that my wife suffered a lot through all those years, taking care of the children and raising them,
Yeah,
but she never complained.
and
Good Christian woman, she never complained.
remind me your wife's name.
Melita,
Belita.
Melita Gay
Melita.
Hall,
Melita Gay Hall.
Melida.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
She was a precious, treasured wife.
yeah, she was precious wife. 62 and a half years.
I think she knew she was sick and dying because she used
Mm-hmm.
to tell Brenda and I, now you girls have to take care of your dad when I'm gone.
Yeah.
We didn't get to spend much time together before we got married because I was in California and she was in Kentucky.
Yeah.
We spent 10 whole days together before we got married.
10 whole days.
10 whole days.
Yeah.
That's called a whirlwind romance.
Yeah, it is.
But I knew the first time I met her, she was for me.
Yes.
I told her so. Then, after I got back to the base and we wrote a couple letters to each other, I had already asked her mother, could I marry her? And her mother said yes. We were both members of the same church.
Wow.
And she told our girls later on in life that her mother told her, you ain't never going to get rid of that boy.
Yeah. And they didn't.
No, they didn't get rid of it. But, you know, there was a 2 Saturday revival, and this lay minister by the name of Brother Carty, I never knew his first name, and there was 10 youth and 4 adults got saved, and we didn't have a church. And so we were meeting in my best friend, who was crippled from polio, in his grandmother's basement. And we got to be like we had 35 people. And we were sitting on the stairs and everything down in the basement. And we thought, well, we got to find a place to rent. And one of the guys that got saved when I did says, I got this lot that my dad left me where he had a grocery store and it burnt down. I'm going to donate it.
Oh.
And so the very next Saturday, we started cleaning that lot off. And then we laid the foundation. We poured the forms for the foundation, got the concrete poured. And then we started collecting every Saturday and buying whatever block we could buy, cinder block. And finally, the lumber company said, are you the guys building that church up in East Elkhorn? We said, yeah, well, they would throw in extra material. So God was blessing us. And a year later, we was in that church, sitting on 2x12s on cinder blocks.
Outstanding.
And so I was one of the founders of that church, and I got to go back a couple years ago. And I told the pastor who I was, and he was a young man, maybe in his 20s. And so he announced my name to the church and had me stand up. And then this couple came over and sat down by me, and he says, I need to talk with you after the service. And I said, okay. He says, I know you. He says, no, I don't know you. My dad knew you. You were both 2 of the teenagers that built this church. So me and him got to share together for a while.
That's outstanding.
It's outstanding. And,
Yeah.
you know, you never ever think about anything like that until it happens.
Yeah. God coming back with you in the church full
Yeah.
circle.
Yeah.
What's the name of the church?
It's the Free Will Baptist Church of East Elkhorn, and they've already started a second one about a half mile up the road from that since I left there.
Great testimony. Wonderful story.
Yeah, so I've always tried to serve the Lord the best I could, do what I could, you know.
Well, you still do.
And,
I hear you singing every Sunday morning.
yeah,
I sit in Bible study with
Yeah.
you,
yeah,
and you provide thoughtful,
yeah.
wise statements to the
Me and my
men's Sunday
sister,
school
when
class.
we were teenagers, used to sing in church. We used to get called up on almost every Sunday to sing a special.
Oh,
Yeah,
no wonder
Right.
you sound so good. You've been doing that your whole life.
yeah. So we did that in my early years. I kind of miss that kind of stuff occasionally.
Well, God bless you, Chuck.
Bless you. Thank you.
We'll
Thank you. You're a wonderful pastor.
oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that. Y'all take care. God bless.
Amen.